I know that you're in a place right now where you feel like nothing is going your way. You're in a state right now where you want more from life, but the more you work for it, the farther it seems. And when you look around, it feels like everyone else is achieving their goals, and you wonder like, what does God have against me? Why can't I have these simple things? Maybe it's better relationships. Maybe it's a certain type of car, or your dream job, or financial freedom, fitness, happiness in general. But you just can't seem to reach your goal. I used to be right where you are. A few years ago, I wanted all the things that I have today. Good relationships, a marriage, kids, paid off cars, a house, a business. But every time I tried to pursue those things, it seemed like it was just such an uphill battle and I was failing. Like, I wanted financial freedom, which I still don't completely have, but it's a lot better now. And I decided, because I am an artist, that I would open an Etsy shop because, you know, that works for some people. Why not for me? And I literally spent hours and hours scanning my stuff, working on art. I spent money to upload it to Etsy. I spent money on getting it scanned and worked out all correctly. It was a lot of work, and I literally worked on this for like 2 years. And what did I get out of it? Like $200? Like, I made some sales, but they kind of sucked and it wasn't worth it at all. And I just like, why not? I tried to be smart and I just didn't ever make it to where I wanted to go. And the problem was I did not have the one trait that leads to success, which is the ability to be teachable. No one is going to tell you this, but if you don't allow yourself to be teachable, then you're not going to get very far in life, and it is going to be your fault. Welcome back to another episode of Consider This. My name is Essie, and today we're going to be talking about how to be teachable so that all your amazing potential won't be wasted and you can actually get to where you want to go. So when we talk about being teachable, a lot of the times, like, my initial thought is the ability to, like, learn, basically, and allow yourself to learn from other people, to be taught. And that is part of what I'm talking about, but it's not the entire concept. Of course, we need to learn from other people and realize that we are not an expert on everything all at once, or basically ever. Especially if you're young like me. I mean, I'm 26, but it's like I'm in the first half of life still, and there are people who have done what I want to do who are on the other side of it. I need to be able to be taught by them. And you know, all those years ago, I would not have thought that my problem was I wasn't teachable, because I was looking up like how to run an Etsy shop. I was finding these mentors, whether they're on YouTube or in person or a podcast. Like, I was looking into how to do it, and I would say that I was teachable. But more of what we're talking about today, and the heart of being teachable, is this whole huge realization that we don't even know how to get to where we want to go. And that was the part of the ability to be teachable that I was lacking, and you probably are too. And what I mean is that I thought, oh, well, I need to be like an Etsy shop owner in order to have financial freedom, or a YouTuber, or whatever what I was trying to do. And that isn't necessarily the case. You could probably ask so many successful people if they thought they would ever run the business that they're running or get into what they're doing and stuff like that, and they probably would say no, because you don't just like follow your hopes and dreams and they automatically work out. Sometimes life throws you a curveball, and even though it's a curveball that leads to success, a lot of the time we don't really see that at first. We're like, I appreciate the opportunity, but I don't really want it. And that's what happened to me. My uncle runs a sign business, and he just gave me some old equipment, and I wasn't trying to run a sign business. I was totally doing other things, but I thought, hey, I'll give it a try, I guess. Sure, it's free stuff. And that is the business we run today, and it's growing, and it's amazing, and it's helping with our finances, and just allows for a lot more wiggle room. But if I had not allowed myself to be teachable just by God, really, and by what life brings us, then I would have said, like, no, I'm not going to take the time for, to do a sign business because I want to run my Etsy shop, or I want to be a YouTuber, which obviously I'm still pursuing. But it's not my focus, because I've relaxed to the idea that I know what success is, or I know where I would be happy. The key to success is to allow God to teach you and to live a more fluid life so that you can adapt and grow wherever life brings you and with whatever God hands to you. Because he knows better, right? I probably wouldn't like running an Etsy shop for whatever reason. I certainly got a little bit burnt out because it wasn't going anywhere and I kept doing the same stuff, and it takes the joy out of things if we're just pushing a boulder up a hill. And I know that you probably have this vision of who you want to be and where you want to go. And it isn't necessarily ungodly or, not noble or something. It's not wrong. But I want you to imagine what would happen if you just allowed God to work in your life. Or you just took a moment, right now you can even, take a moment to think about, what are the things that God has put into my life right now, even if they're not what I really want to pursue, that could get me closer to my goals. And all of this really comes down to humility, because we just assume that, financial freedom is at the end of the road, called an Etsy shop or running a gym or whatever, and it may not be for us. The Bible tells us to not lean on our own understanding, and it's simply because our understanding is so limited. I mean, all the science in the world still cannot tell us the origin of life and stuff, and God probably knows that, right? And we aren't even scientists, yet we take our own advice over God's most of the time, even though we could literally just sit back and talk to him whenever we want and get insight from him. And just, if we actually take a moment to look and see where he's working in our lives, then we might see where he wants us to go. But for so many people, that's so difficult because we don't even take the time to stop and think or look or consider, like, is this the right path for me? We don't even take the time to pray or any of that. And it really is a matter of stepping away from, your drive, which is a good thing, and your passion, which is a good thing, and setting that aside and taking time to just analyze your situation and think about God's perspective and ask his advice. And when it comes to, like, my family that I have now and my husband and kids, there was a time in my relationship with my husband that I thought, like, it was over. I remember, praying and crying about it and just mourning the loss of that relationship with God. You hang out with God and stuff. And he literally said, like, well, it doesn't have to be over. And that was, like, such a weird thought, because I just thought, like, of course it's over. You can't come back from this and all that stuff. And that's the best thing I've ever done. I mean, my husband's a great guy, and relationships are difficult. They're never going to be easy. But if we just think that they have to be a certain way, and if they aren't that way, then it's over, then we may be ending something that could be so beautiful. Yeah, it's going to take work and be painful, but it's like, okay, great. Any relationship is going to do that. But if our ear is not tuned into what God is saying and we don't invite him into our cry sessions or our planning sessions, that's not being teachable, because we're not inviting the biggest teacher of all. Some people don't really hear God's voice sometimes. Sometimes he speaks to people more through dreams and visions, or even like circumstances. A lot of the time he does speak through circumstances, which is what I'm talking about. Like, if you're a Christian, then your life is kind of controlled. It's protected by God. And so the stuff in your life is there because God has allowed it to be. And it's there for a reason. And yeah, you can carve out your own path and hope to pursue your dreams your own way, but it might be so much more fruitful and easier, and plus, like, spiritually meaningful if you do it God's way instead of your way. In Western society today, we think a lot about how unjust and unfair the hand we were dealt is compared to other people who were born with more money or in a different area. But if we, hopped off that victim train and actually looked at, okay, great, like, yeah, sure, it's not as good of a hand as other people, but what do I have? And we could actually start using that, we would probably be a lot farther in life, because the mindset of a successful person is not one of defeat. It's one of passion and drive and persistence. But this can be so difficult because, like, I've literally given up art in general because I don't have time anymore, and I am doing signs and other things which are bringing me closer to my goals, but I have had to give up art, which I enjoy and I think is cool. And that's difficult. It can be really a sad thing sometimes to switch gears and to surrender to God's will, because we really do get tied to our vision of who we're going to be or what we want to do. And it kind of ties into like our identity, because sometimes we think like, well, if I do give that up, who will I be? Or how am I going to think of myself? I mean, creation can't define itself in the first place. So us labeling ourselves and telling, like me saying, oh, I'm an artist, I have to be an artist. I can't really do that, because I'm a created being and the creator defines the creation. And so it's like, maybe I was never supposed to be an artist, even if I'm good at art and enjoy it. And yeah, I could still do it, but it's just not on my priorities, because I do want to meet my goals. So maybe take a piece of paper and sit down and really pray and think about, what are your goals? Not like what is the pathway you want to take to get to your goals, but just in general, like I said at the beginning, do you want to have financial freedom? Do you want to have a specific career or a family or some property, or I don't know, it could be anything. Or even better relationships. That was one of my goals, because I'm not really a people person and it's something to work on. But sit down and write those out and then really think, like, what parts of those journeys have I created in my mind that I identify with that aren't necessarily from God or may not be part of His plan? And writing it down really helps to focus on it and solidify it and bring it to mind. But it also kind of really gives clarity on where you're at and how you might be able to move forward. And this is such an ongoing process, because I quit Etsy several years ago and started Signs, and they're doing great and all this stuff. But even recently, I had it in my head that I need to read some books not some books every day, but read part of my book every day. And I need to work on YouTube every day. I need to do Signs every day. I need to be a mom and clean and all this stuff. And I was just spending all but 1 hour of my day on these things, and I was just getting so tired and burnt out. Plus I'm pregnant, so I'm not exactly excited to be doing a whole bunch of stuff all the time. But it was really becoming a drag and draining, and I don't actually want this if it means all this checklist every single day. And what I have had to do recently is really get down to the bare bones of it. And I was telling God that I feel like He has been so distant this year. He's always talked to me thoughts in my head and been very clear. And kind of even a dialogue back and forth and things like that, which some people don't have, some people do. But this year He's been so quiet. And I was talking to Him the other day, what's up with that? What did I do wrong? Are you really going to be distant from me and all this stuff? And at the beginning of the year, He had when He had gone quieter and all this stuff, He had given me a word, which is new because He's never done this before. But my word for this year is discipline. And so I was kind of praying the other day and venting about how He's quiet. And He said, I just told you to have discipline. And literally just that is what I want from you. If you want to have discipline in reading books or in pursuing YouTube or with your kids or with Signs, but whatever it is, you pick, and He was explaining that He's given me freedom under this umbrella of discipline, and I can choose what I pursue, but His goal for me is that I have discipline. So that was really freeing to actually hear that there's not a specific area where He wants me to flow into. I mean, I certainly don't think it would be wise of me, having learned what I have learned in the last couple of years, to start art again and reopen an Etsy shop. But I've, since that conversation with Him and getting down to the bare bones of, well, if He wants discipline from me, what do I want? And what are my core values? And I was really thinking that, success, we think of people who can travel and basically do whatever they want because they have the money to do so, which is great. And of course, we would all enjoy that for a time, I'm sure. But success also comes in the form of having a family, which takes a lot of time. And especially if you are a woman and give birth and all these things, it takes a lot out of you. And there's recovery, and you can't, it's just difficult to pursue multiple things at once and multiple visions of success at once. And if you think about, a lot of successful people don't, like, in terms of monetarily speaking, the success of the world, they really don't have too good of a family life, and all the traveling that they do get to enjoy takes them away from that family if they do have one. And that isn't what I want. So rethinking what success might be for you, and getting down to what I want. What do you want out of life? Can really help clarify what kind of journey you are supposed to go on. And of course, with that in mind, none of it is going to have significance if there's no spiritual significance and if God is not in it. Because after the bubble pops and we're all, at the end of our days, the only thing we're going to have left is the spiritual side of it. And so that needs to be our main goal, to honor God, do what he says first. But a quote from Oswald Chambers basically was saying that if your hopes and dreams are godly and noble, there's really no reason why you can't pursue them. Of course, unless God has specifically said, like, do something else instead. But like he said, for me, just have discipline. I can certainly apply that to some of my hopes and dreams and things like that. But really being teachable is allowing him to speak over your life and have, dibs on it, which is what we're supposed to do as Christians. Because back to the humility, there's no way we know better than him when it comes to our life. And some of the things that he allows to happen in our lives make no sense. And it seems like it's completely shattered. And in a worldly standpoint, and from our perspective, it's like, what the heck is going on? Where is God? He's not even here. When all along he's putting us in a specific situation so that we can do something crazy and cool. Just like Joseph is the easiest example from the Bible. His life was destroyed. He was a slave, and then he was imprisoned for basically no reason. And then it leads up to him ruling Egypt and saving the Mesopotamian area from famine and disease. And then his family is reconciled because of what God has done in his heart. And it's just like an amazing story. But think about if you were Joseph, in prison as a slave. It's like, what the heck? Why am I here? But then fast forward a couple years, it would make sense. So we just need to be able to allow God to teach us. And his lessons are kind of vague and not clear. So I guess it ties into also just being surrendered to his will and not fighting what he brings to your table. And there really is great danger that I have seen in other people's lives from ignoring God's will and basically just God in general in your life, especially if you claim to be a Christian. Because we always think that taking God's name in vain means like swearing and saying JC as a cuss word or whatever. And it may have dual meaning. I don't agree with those things either. But I believe that taking God's name in vain means that you identify as a Christian, little Christ, and then you just live however you want to, and you ignore God. And it's kind of like spitting in God's face, because, atheists and stuff, they don't even believe in God. And some of them do spit in his face and are angry at him, and, they've got some problems. But at the same time, plenty of people who call themselves Christians don't listen to God. They just ignore him, and they may try to align their life a little bit with the Bible, but for the most part, they still live as their own God. And that is so dangerous. I have a friend who claims to be a Christian, and I'm not saying they're not. It's just, judge a tree by its fruit, right? And his life is just everything we're not talking about, He doesn't have success. He doesn't own property. He doesn't have a happy family, and he's got problems with the law. And it's just like, wow, that sucks. So sometimes it can be worse for Christians if we do hear what God is telling us or have opportunity to see that what he's put in our lives, but we ignore it and continue to pursue our own hopes and dreams and our own version of ourselves, then God will say, okay, go ahead. And it won't lead to where we want. And we'll just think, well, I don't know why this isn't working, and I don't know why God is allowing this to happen. And we will start to build resentment towards God, which is exactly what the devil wants. He wants us to lose our faith and blame God and say, oh, he's being so mean, when the entire time it's us pursuing our own version of ourselves, which is being our own God, and then we just blame him because it doesn't work out. So having wisdom and being teachable, and we hate tradition and we're all about being woke and stuff, and I don't know, like I don't even like tradition very much, but there's a reason why people before us did certain things, and having the wisdom and discernment to listen to what they're saying and then go to with the Holy Spirit and ask him for wisdom and discernment can help guide us so much. We need to stop thinking that we know who we are. We don't even know ourselves. And in my own journey, this has been a difficult thing to swallow, but I have come to terms with it that, like, Oswald talks about this all the time. A lot of us want to be, we want to be like a preacher, or even, even if it's a godly dream, a preacher or a famous YouTuber or some big wig. But it's like most of us, if we're honest, are going to just be people who do dishes at church. And even though in our own eyes, that is not an important goal at all, and it's kind of like lame and stupid, if that's where God wants you to be and you're serving faithfully and surrendering to his will, that is equally important to like Benny Hinn or Billy Graham, because it's what God wants you to do, right? If we are surrendered and we're allowing God to teach us, then we have little to no say in what we're going to be doing. And honestly, in my own, because like I said, I still post on YouTube, but my happiness is not based on the results of this video and all this stuff, because I have accepted that maybe I will never do something super cool and the world dies. Maybe I'm supposed to live that quiet life and just talk to the person that Jesus puts in front of me and, serve a church. And it's been surprisingly freeing to actually accept that, because there's a certain kind of weight that we seem to carry and pressure that oh, I'm just a loser Christian, not really doing anything, and I need to be this and this, and I need to have people tuning into my podcast and all this stuff. And we try to pursue those goals. We think that service is the same thing as surrender, and it's not at all. So letting go of that vision of myself, and sure, part of my identity or whatever, how I thought of myself, has been freeing, because it gives room, okay, we let that go and we have a hole, and for a time it feels a little empty and echoey and just I don't know, what do I do now? But God, if you allow him, he will come in and he will show you that, for me, my kids are very important. There's a line in Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis, and it's basically this book, fiction book, but it has a lot of truth in it, spiritual truth. But it's a fiction book about two demons talking to each other. One is a mentor, and it's very interesting. But anyway, there's a line in there that says basically oh, we've fooled the human race into thinking that having kids really isn't important and a big deal. And it's it is. These are brand new people. And if you think about your ripple effect as a parent, and then down to your kids, and then their ripple, it's amazing. If you dedicate raising your kids to Jesus and just being Jesus in their life, that is so important. Basically, God has given me meaning where I'm at right now, because I've let go of the vision of myself of who I want to be on my own. And he's allowed me to see that where I'm at right now with 30 followers, and just raising my kids and being a stay-at-home mom and faithfully doing the sign business is important and is where he wants me to be. So I would encourage you to allow God to teach you and to learn to be teachable and to learn that success is not necessarily all the things you may have in your head, so that God can show you what it is for you. And you can have this freedom and you can feel successful right now if you just allow God to work and show you what he's doing in your life. And I certainly don't think that, he doesn't want me to do YouTube. And it's, again, if your dreams are godly and noble, they're still good things. It's just like, well, maybe I'm not supposed to focus on that right now. And sure, if I have free time, I can do it. But maybe God is just steering me in a different direction for now. I don't know. Either way, whatever direction he's steering you, you should follow in. So taking the time to look around at your life and see what he has already given you and what he's already blessed you with, and pouring your passion into those things, you will just see so much growth and fulfillment in your heart and contentment too, which really is the key to happiness, being content, because we like to shop. We don't actually like to own a whole bunch of stuff. Rich people aren't exactly happy, and happiness comes from contentment and being in cahoots with God. So if you can reach those things where you're at now by being teachable, that would be great. That is what I have found to be true. So yeah, go talk to him. This might be needless to say, but if you are having doubts or you're skeptical about God in general, you can go watch my video about having faith in a skeptical world and my own personal reasoning and logic and journey about being a Christian and maintaining my faith. So the next time you're faced with some sort of opportunity to try to reach your goals in your own head, take a second to stop and think, wait, does God want me to do this? Is this where he's leading me to, or is this where I'm forcing myself to go? But thank you so much for watching. I hope this video has helped you, or my story. I don't know. God will work through it, I hope. But next week, we're going to be talking about this weird habit, skill, trait, I don't know what to call it, that I have. And I've never met anyone else who has it or can do it. And I just going to be throwing that out there on the internet and seeing if literally anyone else can do it. I just have never met someone. So stay tuned for that. Maybe you can do it. Maybe you're my person. I don't know. Thanks for watching.